there now. But they called a tax holiday back in those days that got just a few bucks in people's pocket. Nothing like the stimulus would have been if people had been able to keep their own money, all of it, for a couple of months. Now, this wasn't my motive. My motive was to stimulate, but there was a secondary occurrence that would have happened had we had a real tax holiday, even for 2 or 3 months. It would have been that workers across America, including union workers, would notice, many of them for the first time, it would really come home how much money they're sending to Washington every month and how much better their lives would be if they didn't send that much money to Washington every month, if they had their own money to give to their own charitable causes, they had their own money to bail themselves out, their own money to stimulate their own household, everybody had been better off. But that's not the tack the president chose. He got what was originally touted to be an $800 billion stimulus, and he also had about $450 billion of the original TARP that he and Secretary Geithner were able to find ways to squander. And we were told if we did not pass the president's stimulus package back in early '09, he said the unemployment rate, Mr. Speaker, might go as high as 8.5%. That 8.5% sounds pretty good. People remember him saying, well, gee, if you'll pass this, the unemployment will be around 8% at the worst. Wrong. But if you don't pass it, it could go as high as 8.5%. I'd take that 8.5% right now and have everybody that got that money give it back, because it was, for the most part, wasted. Now, people back then were told by the president, it's a stimulus bill. It's all about infrastructure. We're going to have this money go to infrastructure. Well, there was only a tiny pittance of what may have been more like $1 trillion that went to infrastructure. But anyway, that goes through page 16 with that part. And we get into first responder stabilization, and there is $5 billion for one program, $4 billion for another program, $1 billion for the Attorney General First Responder Stabilization Fund. Oh, I guess $4 billion for the Attorney General Carry Out Competitive Grant Program. It keeps being lost on people here that America's better off if you don't force people at the point of imprisonment and IRS persecution to give all this money to Washington, and then we'll dole it out as we see fit. The economy does better when you let people keep their own money and only bring just as much as necessary. Don't try to run everybody's lives. But at page 17, we're going to give all this money to the Attorney General's office and let them dole it out as they see fit. And we've seen that it usually goes, if you're a friend of the administration, you're going to do well. If you're not, they're going to sick on you all of the power of the bureaucratic, whether it's EPA, all of these administration's tools, and you'll pay a price. We're finding that out in Texas. Now, you go to the next, page 18. You've got elementary and secondary schools. They're supposed to get money. But, of course, it's going to come through Washington because we know best. And we're going to dole some money to the states. We're going to dole some to state and local applications, as indicated on page 19. But you can't miss this. It's throughout the bill. Page 20, here we go again. We saw it with the Solyndra fiasco in California. This administration giving away $500 million that can't be accounted for now, just squandered. Well, we're going to do that some more. Maybe if we keep throwing money at a bad idea, it'll somehow, someday, some way get a little better. So page 20's got us prioritizing green practices, kind of like a bankrupt Spain has done. And now there's money in here, page 21, and this is nice because money even for private schools, but only if they have a child poverty rate of at least 40%. So then we go, you got community college modernization and more green jobs within the colleges, page 23. And you go on and on as I went through this. It does go on and on. But then we're told, we are going to invest. This time we really, really mean it. We said we really meant it back in January of 2009 that we're going to have infrastructure, and that's going to bring us out. We said it. We didn't spend it on infrastructure. We squandered it, Acorn, all these different groups. But this time we really, really, really mean it. And so let's see. That looks like that's okay. $2 billion for that program and on. And it's interesting. We got all this money we're going to put toward highways and whatnot. Now, anyone, Mr. Speaker, that believed this was all going to go straight to infrastructure missed the point. Because then we get over to page 40 and you get to the real jobs. Now, this is where the jobs are really created. Start it in page 40. It's called the American Infrastructure Financing Authority. If you love Fannie and Freddie, you're going to love the American Infrastructure Financing Authority. And let's see, page 41, you find out 7 voting members appointed by the president. Well, he's good at creating jobs. Look at all the government jobs he's added. So that's who I want having appointed. I mean, he's appointed all these people from universities that have never created jobs in their lives. And so they're perplexed why their programs aren't working. He does have the head of GE that's helping him with that jobs program, and China is grateful. China's very grateful to the head of GE because he's created lots of jobs. They're just in China and not here. But maybe he'll get to be on this board as well. But it's another government program. And let's see, I want to make sure I get this right. Let's see, the board of directors first appointed shall be deemed the incorporator of AIFA. That's American Infrastructure Financing Authority. But that'll make for some good reading. I wouldn't read it right before going to bed because you might not be able to go to sleep. Then we get over to page 56, and this talks about the funding of the American Infrastructure Financing Authority and the administrative fees. That's section 257. And we get into, let's see, hereby appropriated AIFA to carry out this act for the cost of direct loans and loan guarantees, subject to limitations under section 253, and for administrative costs, $10 billion, and remain available till expended. And then you got some other monies there, but that's good news because, you can spend that for administrative costs. And fortunately, in Washington, we don't run up much in the way of administrative costs. Now, one thing that some people have talked about to raise a little bit of revenue is to sell some of our broadband spectrum. And then we also know that there are those in Washington who are not happy that the FCC has not been able to have a fairness doctrine so they can dictate what goes on the air. Well, not to worry, because people, it seems, are going more and more to broadband than the radio waves and television waves. We're getting more and more broadband stuff. So we have the answer to the lack of a fairness doctrine that the FCC has wanted to under this administration, but we've been able to avoid it so far. There's nothing about a fairness doctrine in here, but fortunately, you get to page 75, you find out we're going to establish this name, Public Safety Broadband Corporation. Next page, 76, you find out it's established a private nonprofit corporation,